No matter what choices you make in life, there will always be compromises. You could choose to work out and eat healthy, but it'll take time and effort. You could pursue a lucrative career in computer science, but it'll cost you your sanity. And for a home server or mini PC, you could go with a small, low-power system, but you'll most likely sacrifice useful I/O. Until now. This is the ZimaBoard, and no joke, this is probably the most excited I've been about a product in a good while. The ZimaBoard was a Kickstarter campaign that has since closed, but they have reopened pre-orders for their next round of production. The campaign was extremely successful, probably because a lot of people saw the potential in this thing, so let's talk about specs. Now, there are 3 models you can go with that range from $120 up to $200 and offer either a dual-core or quad-core Intel Celeron processor, 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes of LPDDR4 RAM, and 16 or 32 gigabytes of eMMC storage. Now, the specs aren't going to blow you away, obviously, but that isn't really the full appeal of this device. The innovation it brings to the table lies in its small form factor and excellent I/O. The entire thing weighs just 278 grams and measures 5.5 by 3.2 inches. Yeah, that looks about right. Now, you're probably thinking, did you just mix metric and imperial units? Yeah, man, I don't discriminate. So size alone is impressive for people looking specifically for a device with a small footprint. But what makes it special is the I/O. Around the back, we have the 12-volt barrel plug for power input, 2 USB 3.0 ports, 2 1 gigabit LAN ports, and a mini display out. On the front, we get 2 dedicated SATA 3 ports with a little 4-pin power connector. They do have single and dual adapters for connecting your drives, or you can rig up whatever power connection if you want to flex or something. Then on the side of the device, we actually have a full PCI slot. Now, it is PCI 2.0 and it is only 8 lanes, but in a device this small, having dual 1 gigabit NICs, USB 3.0, dedicated SATA, and PCIe, that's freaking crazy. And they even made sure to keep the physical slot open at the end so you can fit a full physical 16X card in there without having to hack at the plastic. And remember, this is an x86 based Intel system, so pretty much all your shit is going to be compatible. Want to throw a GPU in there? NVMe drives? 10 gigabit networking? Go for it. The only downside I've noticed here is that with standard PCI cards, the bracket fits a little too tight for my comfort, so I wish they would have just moved the slot back a couple of millimeters. Also, your mini DisplayPort is probably going to be blocked as well. Note that you could just use a riser card and alleviate both of these issues, but that just adds bulk and takes away from the petite, dare I say, adorable nature of the ZimaBoard. Okay, so we talked specs and I/O, but what is it like to actually use this thing? Well, by default, it ships with a custom flavor of Debian with CasaOS loaded onto it. CasaOS is a community-based open source software focused on delivering a simple home cloud experience around the Docker ecosystem. Basically, it's a self-hosted web GUI that gives you easy one-click apps deployed using Docker. Now, it's still in its very early stages, but I like what they're doing over there, and it looks clean AF. I immediately installed Ubuntu Desktop just to mess around with, but you're free to throw whatever weird, cringy Linux distro you want at it, and if you're a true corporate shill, you can even install Windows, and I'm actually going to do that later, so please don't meme on me. The model I have here is the 832, which has the quad-core Intel N3450 with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of eMMC storage. Now, I do wish it had an NVMe drive built into the board, but for the price and expandability of this thing, I can live with it. So let's actually plug it in, boot it up, and show you guys how this thing runs. Okay, I don't need this anymore. All right, so here we are in the BIOS of the ZimaBoard, and it looks like a pretty standard BIOS. Here you can see we have 8 gigabytes of memory, clocked at 1600 megahertz. Can go into advanced settings and adjust some things. I mean, there's not too much you can do here. You can set the CPU fan temperature of the CPU fan that doesn't exist. CPU configuration. You can go into power management here and adjust, like if you want to have turbo enabled and C states, you can do all that here. Virtualization, you do have virtualization enabled on this thing. If you want to do it, you have 4 cores and 4 threads, so nah. But yeah, pretty standard BIOS. I'm not gonna click through this entire thing. Now, like I mentioned before, I am running Ubuntu desktop. Again, you can go with whatever flavor of Linux you want. You can go with Windows, whatever. Again, this is an x86 based system, so you're not limited by ARM capabilities. So yeah, we are here in Ubuntu. And right now at idle, we are pulling about 15 watts, which is extremely power efficient. Now I know we're not doing much, but again, 15 watts on something this small and x86 based is pretty impressive. So performance wise, I did run Geekbench on this thing just because we'd like to see the raw power output, and not super impressive, right? Single core of 179 and multi-core of 818. But again, this isn't designed to be a powerhouse. It is designed to be a small, low power system with lots of IO, which it is. Now, if you did plan on using this as a desktop system and you wanted to use it for web browsing and watching YouTube, it's okay at it. It's certainly better than the experience you're getting on like a Raspberry Pi 4. But again, neither of these are really designed to be desktop replacements, but I know a lot of people are going to wonder that. Anytime they see any type of computer, they want to know if, can I watch YouTube on it? So let's find out. All right, let's just search for a random channel. Let's just pick one at random. Oh, look, this one looks okay. Oh God, ads. So let's bump it up to 1080p right off the bat. Turn on stats for nerds and see what we get. We'll go full screen too. 0 dropped frames. This guy's funny. I like him. Let's bump it up to 1440p. Okay, we are seeing a few dropped frames right at the beginning, but still playing through. 4K, let's go 4K. Okay, that's where we're struggling. All right, so 1440p good, 4K watchable, but you're dropping like 30% of your frames. All right, chill, we're done with you. So just loading up like a web browser, we'll take a look at System Monitor, and you can see our 4 cores here. They are working pretty significantly just to open a web browser. Again, staying on the same trend of this being a low powered system, but obviously it does have some power, which is perfectly fine for a lot of services. And one of those services I mentioned was CasaOS. So by default, it comes loaded with the OS that is packaged with the ZimaBoard, but like I mentioned, I just put Ubuntu on it, and luckily it's really easy to spin up CasaOS if you want to redeploy that on your system. So going to the local IP of your device will spin up the CasaOS GUI. And like I said before, it is pretty clean. I like what they're doing with it. It is in its very early stages, but it is designed to be a very simplistic way to manage a lot of your services and even a file system. So here you can see some specs on the system, the CPU usage, as well as the RAM. They do have a default storage app, which is pretty cool. Based on what I've seen in the Discord, they are actively working on this right now. So you can add drives, you can add new storage to this, and that is accessible via this Files app that comes packaged with CasaOS. And it is all web hosted. You can upload or create files directly through a web GUI and access all the files on your system, which is pretty cool. They even have a built-in code editor, which is pretty cool and convenient if you're a hyper nerd and you want to code on your ZimaBoard over a web GUI. But yeah, then the main feature is going to this app store and being able to do one-click deployment of very popular apps. Now they are actively adding more apps to their app store, but these are the ones you get now, and some of the more popular ones are available already. So you see Nextcloud, Home Assistant, Plex, Radar, Sonar, Photo Prism, Pi-hole, a lot of cool things. So for example, if we want to install SyncThing, can just click install, It's going to pull the image. Then you can go in here into settings, and here you can see all of the parameters. Now you can specify, I've done so many walkthroughs on SyncThing and setting up SyncThing, but if you're new to Docker, just go ahead with these default configurations. Let it assign a host port to the inner container port. You can specify exactly where you want it to look for your data. And then you can specify some environment variables. But again, just leaving all this default, you could see it spun up extremely quickly. And then if we click on the icon, it will take us directly to our SyncThing GUI. And just like that, we've deployed SyncThing in a matter of seconds. So again, I like what they're doing with CasaOS. I like the direction it's going. I like the simplicity, but just remember, it is in its very early stages. If you want to help the project out, they do have a Discord. I will leave that linked in the description below. If you want to download it, check it out, and interact with the devs, feel free to do so. They are very inviting and very helpful. But yeah, like I said earlier, I was going to install Windows on this, and I did. Let's take a look at it. And to give Windows a fighting chance, I did install it directly to an SSD instead of the built-in eMMC storage. So let's plug in the included single drive adapter. I did order the dual version of this, but that has yet to come in. So, and while we're at it, let's go ahead and throw a 10 gigabit NIC in here using the PCI port that we have access to. So you can see I did take the front bracket off just so that it would fit much nicer with this system and not scrape the edge, which I've already done and kind of scuffed up the paint, but that is okay. Okay, so here we are in Windows 10 Pro, and you can see just sitting idle, this CPU is using at least 20% and sometimes bumps up to 50% usage just sitting idle. So Windows isn't going to be the greatest experience on this thing, but you can run it. So obviously we plugged in the 10 gigabit connection. Let's do an iPerf test just to see what kind of speeds we are getting. Now this is connected directly to my TrueNAS server, which has a 10 gigabit connection. And we are going to run an iPerf test. 2.15, 3.23, 3-ish. So it looks like we're getting around 3 gigabits per second out of this thing, and it's honestly pretty solid. I didn't really expect to get a full 10 gig out of this thing considering the limited speeds of the device itself, meaning the SSD. Then I wasn't really expecting to get full 10 gig. Now, if we had a built-in NVMe drive, then yeah, maybe we would get full 10 gig reads. Yeah, we're probably honestly limited by the speed of the SSD itself. But man, imagine 3 gigabit per second on a device this tiny over LAN. Freaking sweet, man. Now you did probably notice that I have League of Legends installed because we gotta see if it can play some League, right? So let's go to play. Oh, my scaling is all jacked up. Everything is just laggy. What is our, yeah. Our CPU is 100% just in the freaking client of League. And yeah, the client of League kind of sucks. So that honestly isn't a surprise. Okay, what are you guys expecting? Comment below right now. We're gonna try medium. Medium on League of Legends. What kind of FPS are you expecting on this? 1080p. 1080p medium on an Intel N3450 with built-in Intel HD 500 graphics. Now, while this is loading, you can theoretically add a GPU to this system. Now, you are going to have to make sure that it only has an 8x connection. Now, while this one does have the full 16x physical card or physical connections, if you look closely, you'll see that only, I keep saying 8x, 4x. I'm gonna have to edit that so many times in this video. 4x slot. So you can see that this only has, let's see if we can get you to see it. You can see, you can at least try to see that only 4 lanes of this are actually physically connected. But yeah, we are loaded in. Let's see, what are we running? We are, oh God, what just happened? All right, let's try this again. Nope, okay. So I am using a 12 volt 2 amp power supply because that's all I have on hand right now. It does recommend a 12 volt 3 amp power supply. So with the 10 gigabit NIC, we might be pulling more than the 24 watts that we're able to supply to this thing. And when it loads up a game, that might be drawing too much power for this little power supply. So I'm gonna take the 10 gig out, boot it up, and I'm pretty sure that's what was causing it. So just make sure that you have the adequate power supply if you're going to be running add-on cards for this device. Okay, we have successfully loaded into the game this time. Let's try it now. Okay, it looks good. I'm fairly certain that's what the issue was. So, all right, here we go. So let's take a look at our settings. We are running at 1080p low. Let's bump it up to medium. What was your guess for FPS? I'm going to say like 20, low 20s. 20, 22, 23. Okay, above 30. Okay, 30. Honestly, not bad. I mean, literally you could play League of Legends on this thing. I mean, no, it's not graphically intense at all to run. You could run it on a toaster, but again, look at this freaking thing. All right, that's enough of that. So yeah, you guys can see the potential here, right? Like, we've got a small form factor, low power, lots of I/O, and it's honestly an extremely reasonable price considering the top of the line model is only $200 and you can get one at just $120. So yeah, pretty impressive. Now, again, you can use this as a desktop, but this is designed to be more of a maker board, more of people who like to tinker, set up in their home lab, or maybe even industrial applications. If you want something with a small form factor, that will act more as a desktop. I do have a B-Link, which is similar in size, but is designed to be a desktop replacement. This is gonna be much faster if you're running something like Windows or any Linux desktop environment. But again, it doesn't have PCI, it doesn't have dedicated SATA, and it has a really annoying fan. So yeah, it's your call. So yeah, is the ZimaBoard perfect? No. Physical PCI issues, no built-in NVMe, and a weird SATA power connection keep it from being a 10 out of 10 product. But it's still awesome and definitely a 9 out of 10. So do I recommend this? Absolutely. Assuming you aren't looking for a super powerful mega server to show off to all the ladies, then this will fit a lot of your home lab needs just fine. Now, I know I didn't cover all the potential projects you can do with this, but I do have 2 dedicated projects coming, including replacing my Netgate SG1100 PF Sense box with this, and also bringing this guy off the grid with the help of my, oh, where are you? Anchor power station to see what it would be like to run your home lab in a post-apocalyptic world, or like just without electricity. Basically the same thing. All right, let's do comment of the week. This comment comes on my Ryzen 5700G overclock video. It's an oldie but a goodie. This comes from Daniel Del Aguero, who says, paired my 5700G with 32 gigs of DDR4 and a 3060 Ti, 8 gigabyte eats everything up. Yeah, the 5700G, when I made this video, I 100% recommended it because of the GPU crisis and it having pretty solid built-in graphics. And also the fact that later on you could pair it with a GPU. So seems like that's what Daniel did here, and it is working out perfectly fine for him. So if you're interested in the 5700G, I have a couple of videos. I will link one up here and check that out. But thank you for the comment, Daniel. But that is all I have for you today. I hope you learned something. I hope you found it entertaining. Let me know down in the comments what you would do with your ZimaBoard, and I don't know how far you think you could throw it. It's pretty far, I think. Now, if you like the video, then drop a like below. If you want to be notified when my next videos go up, then consider subscribing and hitting that bell so you can be the first to comment and win 69 Radal points. Now, I'd like to give a shout out to all of my Patreons and YouTube members. We actually have quite a few now, and I think I'm gonna have to use both sides of the screen. Freaking crazy. You guys are kicking chicken. But if you've made it this far in the video, I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.